And if, with all his strength, a man gains victory, he wins sweet songs of praise and future fame, a lasting proof of noblest glory. The supreme prize of poetry was among the many honors bestowed upon the victor of the ancient games. The Greeks invented games. As early as the 16th century BC, they held races on foot and in chariots. Sometimes the prize was a bride, the monarch's daughter, and thus the champion won a princess and a kingdom as well. But by the 8th century BC, the first recorded Olympics, the prize was merely a crown of leaves. Here at Delphi, there were games second only to the Olympics. The festival began here in the Temple of Apollo, home of the famous oracle on whose walls were engraved the essence of Greek wisdom, know thyself. Bill Toomey and Rafer Johnson are champions who know.
Toomey, if you had your choice, would you rather be an ancient Greek or a modern jock?
No choice, Rafer. Ancient Greek.
You mean you'd give up all your gold and television glory?
Sure. Listen, the ancient champions didn't have to pay any taxes ever.
And they got a lifetime supply of free meals.
See? No choice.
I'll buy that, Mr. Toomey.
See that pile of rocks over there? Would you believe 2 parallel tracks, 1 indoor and 1 outdoor? That must have been a fantastic setup. You know, they didn't treat their athletes in the same grungy way we do.
Swimming pool, boxing ring, wrestling ring.
The name is Palestra.
Thank you, Professor. The best part was that the town of Delphi put their jocks up for nothing, for as long as they wanted.
Yeah, they didn't have any classes or exams interfere with their training either.
I figured that would especially appeal to you, Bill.
The athletes prayed for victory, sometimes promising to dedicate a discus or javelin to the gods, but each prayer was different.
May the gods preserve the ancient legs of the noble Rafer, and may he fare no worse than second place.
And may Toomey's feet be no faster than Toomey's wit.
The Delphi Training Village was designed especially for athletes in the ancient pentathlon, 5 grueling events held in a single day: dash, discus, long jump, javelin, and wrestling. Aristotle admired this contest most of all because it was a unique test of strength and speed. By the way, these are not Aristophanes' birds. But Aristophanes' birds might well have been performed in this theater. The games at Delphi were noted for their artistic program. The day before the athletics was spent right here in drama, dance, and song.
Rafer, would you like me to sing?
Only if you want me to dance.
Once every 4 years, they would go up the mountain, each man dreaming of victory. Winning was everything. The Greeks never gave a second prize. At Delphi, the award was a wreath of laurel, the tree sacred to Apollo. When the games were first held here in 582 BC, Delphi was an international center, the navel of the earth, as it was called. In its heyday, it was the scene of important political meetings. Those gathered for the games would also draft laws and trade agreements. But not on Stadium Day. This day, all thoughts were on the agon. Agon is the Greek word for contest. It is also the source of our word, agony. Our word stadium comes from the Greek stadion, the length of this straightaway, roughly 195 yards. These stone seats, gently curved for better viewing, were added in the 2nd century AD. Originally, the spectators, men only, just sat on the ground. Women were barred on pain of death. The men in the blue suits date from the 20th century AD. They are modern Olympic Decathlon champions who have never competed against one another until today. But today they will try the ancient pentathlon and each other's strength in a stadium where at least one record, set 2,000 years ago, has never been broken. This is Rafer Johnson, now age 36, stands 6'4", weighs 192. Several times world record holder, he was Olympic Decathlon champion in 1960. Bill Toomey, now age 33, stands 6'1", weighs 188. He was Olympic Decathlon champion in 1968 and still holds the world's record. Before all competitions, Greek athletes would cover themselves with olive oil. perhaps practical, certainly beautiful. The poet Bacchylides celebrates one pentathlon champion who made his wondrous body gleam and shine like marble flashing. The loincloths are Greek, but they are not really authentic for the games. All ancient competitions were actually held completely in the nude. We regret our inability to be totally accurate. The judges would have sworn before Zeus to be impartial, accept no bribes, and not corrupt the athletes in any way. The athletes would also have sworn before Zeus that they had trained for the games for at least 10 months. This is the first of the 5 events of the ancient pentathlon, the one stadion dash, 195 yards. In antiquity, false starters would be punished by whipping. An embarrassment. Rafer Johnson and Bill Toomey are standing in the original starting grooves. The historian Herodotus tells of an argument between 2 Greek generals on how to react to the invading Persians. One urged caution, saying, "In the games, he who false starts will get a flogging." But the other general retorted, "Yes, but he who is left at the start will win no crown." Toomey wins this crown. Even in ancient times, the sprint was the prestige event. When the Olympics began in the 8th century BC, this was the only event. People would travel for months to watch a confrontation that lasted less than half a minute. The winner of the Olympic sprint would be exempt from taxes, eat free meals, and have the entire Olympic year named after him. This handshake is not authentic. The Greeks did not believe in the concept of a good loser. Fair play was invented by the British in the 19th century. The ancient discus throw was primarily a test of strength. The discuses varied in size, but were usually much heavier than the modern one. The discus used in this competition is a replica of a bronze discus in the Athens Museum. It weighs over 15 pounds. The modern discus weighs only 4.5 pounds, and it's much more aerodynamically designed. As you could see, Bill Toomey had a great deal of difficulty controlling this heavy implement. Rafer's throw is much farther. It is, of course, measured from where it lands, not where it slides. It is not known precisely how the ancient discus was thrown. Homer describes one competitor as whirling and whirling around. And yet the balbus, the throwing area, is an open rectangle, which suggests that there was some kind of run before the discus throw. Toomey is trying the ancient way. Yet he still can't control this heavy discus. The most famous discus in antiquity was the so-called disc of Iphitus. On it was engraved the famous Olympic truce. By the terms of this truce, agreed upon at the first Olympiad in 776 BC, any athlete competing in the games would get free passage behind enemy lines in times of war. The most famous discus thrower in antiquity is the hero of the Odyssey. Odysseus is washed up on the island of Phaeacia. There are games held in his honor, but he still does not reveal his name. The local princes challenge him to take part in the discus competition. He wins, and his throw is so great that they know he must be an epic hero. This is Toomey's last chance to beat Rafer Johnson's throw. He does not, and Rafer wins the discus competition. Thus, after 2 events in this ancient pentathlon, the score is tied at 1 apiece. Bill Toomey has proved to be the swifter, and Rafer Johnson the stronger. The handshake is not authentic.
Rafer, you did a heck of a job throwing this big thing. This is over 7 kilos, and I really had a difficult time handling it.
I had a difficult time as well. How heavy is 7 kilos?
That's well over 15 pounds.
Well, this one's about a third of that or less. And yet, this is much heavier than the modern discus, but much lighter than that discus. How do you explain that?
Well, the Greeks, I guess, when they competed, had different discuses at each meet. And so when they came to a competition, they might not have even known which one they were going to throw, which made it kind of tough.
So they worked out, and whichever one they got was part of the game.
I imagine they used the heavy one always to practice with, and then they were better off if they got the light one.
How about the next event? You want to try that?
I'm ready.
The ancient long jump was a dramatically different event. It was done with weights held in each hand. These weights, called halteres, were between 4 and 8 pounds and made either of stone or, as here, of bronze. The halteres being used are copies of originals in the Athens Museum. They weigh 2.1 kilos, or 4.5 pounds. As Aristotle himself noted, proper arm action in the use of these weights could definitely help the jumper. In fact, they resulted in fantastic distances. The ancient record was set here, right in this stadium, in the year 478 BC by Phaelus of Crotona. The distance was 55 feet. Cynics will say, no man could jump 55 feet without it being a double or a triple jump. But how can they answer to the fact that the ancient broad jump pit was 50 feet long? Where could you get your second jump from? The sand? The pit we're using here is 33 feet long. Further evidence of the validity of the 55-foot jump is the fact that the existing record broken by Phaelus was 52 feet. Phaelus came from a small town in southern Italy, Crotona. It was a Greek town. Because the ancient games were limited exclusively to Greeks, no one but Greeks could compete. Bill Toomey with the red marker is quite ahead of Rafer Johnson. Even King Philip of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great, had to produce proof of his Greekness before being allowed to compete in the Olympic Games. No one is quite sure how these halteres were used. It was very, very difficult to coordinate arm and leg movements for perfect results. Bill Toomey seems to be doing a bit better than Rafer Johnson. This is his last jump. Let's watch his technique very carefully. Toomey's beautiful timing lets the weights go just when they become baggage. On the other hand, the weights have been a handicap to Rafer, who is still behind. Rafer is carrying the weights rather than letting the weights carry him. This is his last jump. Just past Toomey's mark. Rafer won this event on sheer power because Toomey's style was far better. Rafer Johnson, who has not competed in more than a decade, now leads this ancient pentathlon 2 events to 1. This is his winning jump. At first, the weights give him momentum, but now the weights slow him down and cost him at least 2 feet in distance. Here is the record leap of Phaelus in relation to Toomey's and Rafer's best marks. The ancient long jump pit was 50 feet long, and Phaelus landed 5 feet beyond the pit and broke both legs. Do you believe 55 feet?
Well, Bill, these didn't do me any good at all, these halteres.
Well, I suppose, Rafer, that you really have to practice with them, and that's part of the problem that we probably, had in this event, is that this was the first time we actually had seen them, and we really didn't know how to get the rhythm or how to use them, or how fast or how slow to go.
The name is good, though, because for me, they were more halt than Ted.
Do you believe that guy went 55 feet by using these?
No way. Not jumping on level ground, unless he jumped off an incline, maybe.
Do you think a guy could jump as far as, let's say, Beeman with these things?
No. I think Beeman with these probably jumped 22, 3 feet, maybe.
Well, I guess we'll really never know whether the guy went 55 or not, but one thing we know, Beeman went 29.
The ancient javelin event differed in two important ways. It tested accuracy as well as distance, and it was thrown with a leather strap. Rafer, with his 3 javelins, looks exactly like the statue of Zeus with 3 thunderbolts in the Athens Museum. This not only proves that Rafer looks like a god, but that the Greeks fashioned their gods in the likeness of their athletic heroes. In fact, the fingers of the Poseidon statue we saw at the beginning of this event are in a perfect position to hold the omentum, the javelin strap. A great throw on the part of Rafer. We know the javelin was a test of accuracy in antiquity from an anecdote told by Antiphon the Sophist. During a practice session, the ancient equivalent of a tennis ball boy was picking up the various javelins around the compter, which is the mark the athletes aimed at. Unfortunately, the young boy was so close to the mark that a javelin speared him. Toomey did not get anywhere near as far as Rafer. Rafer has splendid control of the omentum. Rafer's best throw in modern competition was over 260 feet. We have evidence that with the omentum, the ancient javelin was thrown much, much farther. The Roman poet Statius indicates that the average javelin throw was well over 320 feet. And of course, the modern javelin has only been thrown 307 feet, I say only, by Yanis Lucis of the Soviet Union. That is still a fantastic throw. It seems clear that the strap, or omentum, added leverage to the throw. It would make the javelin rotate on its own axis and have a much steadier flight. The javelin event was the closest thing ancient athletics had to warfare. And of course, ancient athletics were meant to prepare for war. Coincidentally, the modern pentathlon was instituted to prepare French soldiers for warfare. Toomey, every time he has thrown, has tried a different grip. He is not sure how the omentum was used. And he has not gotten out nearly as far as Rafer. He is very close to the compter, and yet not as far as Rafer. Each man now has taken his 3 throws with this bronze-tipped spear of elder wood. The final result is very interesting.
Yours a little bit longer. Yeah, but yours is closer to the compter. Either way.
Toomey wins on accuracy. The score is now tied 2 events apiece. To win the ancient pentathlon, one had to capture any 3 of the 5 events. A champion who got his 3 victories in the early events before the wrestling was said to have won the pentathlon akoniti, without sand. That is, he did not have to step into the sand pit and fight his rival. Neither Toomey nor Rafer will prevail today without sand.
Rafer, I feel a bit guilty about winning the javelin throw without actually having thrown further than you, but maybe the ancient gods are on my side.
Well, it does add a new dimension to it, Bill, throwing for accuracy as well as distance when we're so used to throwing it for distance.
What do you think about the fact that we had this type of javelin to throw?
Well, I think you can probably throw a little further. I don't know, what do you think of the strap?
The strap? You mean the omentum?
No, I mean the strap.
Oh, the strap. I don't know. I think it would be pretty difficult to master it, but perhaps the javelins they had weren't as balanced as the ones that we have, and they really needed it to get that extra thrust. Maybe it's better. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think we can probably end up throwing this with a little practice a lot further. You have both the normal grip plus the strap, just like a slingshot.
The ancient pentathlon was held at the end of the day. The final event was wrestling. Ultimately, the two leading contenders would have to confront each other directly, and by nightfall, there would be one champion. Wrestling was a favorite event among Greek intellectuals. Plato himself competed at wrestling, and young Euripides was also an enthusiastic wrestler. Wrestling was also a part of the school curriculum. Cicero observed that no man could have real grace without wrestling training. All the holes in this match are authentic. We have evidence for all of them in accounts and art of the ancient games. Toomey throws Rafer with a 5th century equivalent of the flying mare. We have evidence for this in vase paintings in the British Museum. Referee signals a fall. Toomey leads by 1 fall. 3 falls out of 5 win. The fact that Rafer is much larger than Bill would have no effect whatsoever on ancient competition. There were no weight categories whatsoever. A man who weighed 150 could find himself up against a man who weighed 250. And the small man could win. Rafer's got Toomey in an underarm lock. Toomey is trying to find his legs around Rafer, but Rafer's holding him too high. Rafer throws him with a waistlock. In Greek, a waistlock is mesonechein, to have a man at your mercy. There's a famous inscription outside this very stadium at Delphi, which says that any spectator caught bringing wine out of the stadium will be fined 5 drachma. Rafer's drinking water, of course. Toomey's oiling up. This is the 3rd round. They're tied at 1 round apiece.
Holly!
The referee signaled Pale, wrestle. There were very few fatalities in these fighting events in antiquity, but one did take place at Olympia in the 5th century. Telemachus of Pharsalia killed his opponent in the ring. In fact, his family erected a statue here at Delphi, and the inscription says, Telemachus is very sorry. Beautiful hip throw by Bill Toomey. It's called a hedrostrophos in Greek, a hip twister. It's depicted in many vase paintings. In fact, the famous Athenian hero Theseus used that very hedrostrophos on a notorious robber. At this point, Rafer couldn't care less about Theseus. Toomey is using a strigil, which Greeks use for the precise purpose he is using it here. Here is the hedrostrophos, the hip twister again, beautifully executed by Bill Toomey.
Holly!
Toomey now leads 2 rounds to 1. He could win the entire pentathlon if he throws Rafer 1 more time. That doesn't count as a fall. It was outside the ring. As you can see, this is hardly a delicate event, but the Greeks had contests much more brutal, like the Pancratian, for example. It was all-out fighting in which the contestants could strangle, twist, kick anywhere, and break fingers. In the 6th century BC, Aricion of Figalea died during a Pancratian final, but he won the Olympic title posthumously because his opponent surrendered before he realized that Aricion was dead. Rafer threw Toomey with a rear waist lock, a grip made famous by Hercules. The match is now tied at 2 falls apiece. The ancient pentathlon will now be decided in the final throw. Here in Delphi, Greece, we are waiting for the 5th and final round of the ancient pentathlon. The final throw would have decided the winner if indeed Bill Toomey had ever actually fought Rafer Johnson. But Johnson and Toomey are themselves of different ages, different times, different Olympiads. Their confrontation here is like the many poems and works of art produced by ancient Greece, an idealization of what never was, and yet always will be. Epameroi, tiditis, tidoutis, skiasonar anthropos, alotanai gladiostotos elthe, lampron phengos epestinandron, kai melichos aion. We are creatures of a day. What are we? What are we not? Man is a dream of a shadow, no more. Yet when bright victory comes, a gift of God, a beam of light illumines men, and life is good. More than 2,000 years ago, the poet Pindar wrote those lines in praise of a winner of these very games at Delphi. The champion's name is long forgotten. The poem abides. The executive producer of the Ancient Games was Rune Arledge. The Ancient Games was produced by Dick Ebersol. It was directed by Lou Volpicelli. The Ancient Games was conceived and written by Eric Siegel.